The economic numbers are in, and for Kamala Harris, it's a disaster. I'm Doug TenNapel. This is the Doug TenNapel channel. Welcome to Exile. Let's watch.
Yes, the big jobs report, and the prophecy came true. Jobs light, 12,000 in non-farm payroll. That is the lightest going back to December of 2020.
Worst job since 2020. That's the guy who started the Tea Party movement. I forgot his name now. If this was Trump's economy, it would be the end of the whole election for him, especially when the two biggest issues across America for everybody is the border and the economy. And so this one would be it for Kamala, but they have mainstream media to cover for them. I'll show you CNN covering for them in a bit. Here's CNBC. U.S. economy added just 12,000 jobs in October, and they give her the excuse it's impacted by hurricanes and the Boeing strike. This does not in any way tell the story, because the last 2 quarters have been a disaster for Kamala.
Well, you know, when you factor in these job revisions, which were down over the last 2 months by roughly 110,000.
Yeah, whoops, the revisions. That's when they initially released the jobs numbers to pump up Kamala Harris, and they quietly roll out the revisions and all the job numbers go down. By a record number, they were off by 100,000 job numbers. Now, that's never happened. So they had to have gotten it wrong on purpose.
What it should say on the screen, it says 12K jobs added in October. That's true. But what this means is that we have 100,000 fewer jobs than we thought we had. That's a really bad number.
That's 12,000 jobs in 3 quarters. This 12,000 job number is a disaster. In fact, 12,000 jobs, you can call that zero. So even then they had to scrape up jobs from who knows where, usually government jobs.
When you're looking at a situation, to add to what John Lonsky was talking about, where we are running nearly $2 trillion deficits, and the government is the fastest growing sector of our economy, we've got something structurally really wrong with this economy.
Government jobs are the only ones doing well. That's not structurally wrong to Kamala Harris. To Democrats, they love growing the government, growing that giant Leviathan state over your head that you and I fund. They redistribute the wealth from us free people and up to these bureaucrats we don't elect. This has to do with they've been talking about Elon Musk shrinking the size of government, that Trump has said he's giving Elon Musk the task to look for government waste. Well, Elon Musk has said of the budget, he could cut it by a third, easily looking for it. He said he could easily find $2 trillion to cut. And the Democrats flipped out. They don't even want him to look for government waste. Remember, this is not an entity that is like other businesses where you have profits and you have, if you don't produce the right product, the market naturally cuts you down. They have no repercussions for not doing their jobs, for spending billions of dollars on connecting internet to rural people and then not connecting a single line. The free market does not touch your government. The only way the free market does touch it is when we vote. So make sure you vote for Trump.
We cannot continue down this path. There is no plan out of the Kamala Harris plan. I've looked at her plan. There's no plan to cut government spending. They keep adding more and more workers. And I'm sorry, we're growing the economy in all the wrong places.
Just growing it in the government. And he said he looked at her plan. Now, any economist who looks at her plan says this is not an economic plan. There's nothing that will cut spending or reduce the size of government. Trump and Elon Musk, they've proposed a massive slash. So something might change if Trump wins. We're going to go into his polls in a minute. Let me just let this guy clean up here.
If you're a campaign insider, what are you paying the closest attention to in these numbers, whether it's Harris cutting into Trump's lead on the economy?
Harris cutting into Trump's lead on the economy. There's no way that's true. That's what they claim. Now, this is an internal CNN pollster saying that. She says that according to the polls, Kamala Harris is cutting into Trump's economic numbers with her non-plan is beating his plan to slash the government by $2 billion. I have serious doubts on that.
And by the way, I'd love to hear what the numbers were for construction, manufacturing, business services, the things where people actually make things in the economy, because those are not growing at all. This is the worst jobs number we've had, Maria, in 3 years.
There you go. Let's close out the election with these terrible job numbers that the media will not report. Now, here's CNN on a theory on internal polling. Now, I just want you to, this lady's going to give you some bad news. So don't freak out. Don't jump out of the easy chair. Don't clutch your heart. Just relax. We're going to land this plane together. But notice every time she says that something good is happening for Kamala Harris and bad for Trump in the polls, I want you to say that she does not cite specific results. It's all hearsay, and we'll go into the evidence that she gives.
Or in Michigan and Wisconsin, she does better on honesty and democracy by 15 points in some cases.
I think if you're the Trump campaign, you're not looking at CNN's numbers. You're looking at your own internals. and I honestly think their internals are actually giving them pause, because I think they're seeing even more. Look, they do have a lot of resources for polling, more than public media companies have, and they're probably seeing the same things that you guys are talking about, which is that there is real groundswell in the early vote. There is real enthusiasm, which is hard to measure.
I think Trump's internal plans are seeing this, and she goes, they're probably thinking this, meaning that's all hearsay. Now I brought you an actual memo from their internal numbers people. Here's confidential memorandum to Team Trump from Tony Fabrizio. President Trump is on the verge. I know there's a great deal of polling and data noise out there as the media continues their unabashed and unprecedented shilling for Kamala Harris. So as we head into the final weekend before Election Day, I wanted to give you an update on where we stand based on public polling averages with a look back at where we were 5 days out from the election in 2020. The following tables show the Real Clear Politics polling average 5 days out in 2020 versus today nationally in the battleground state. If you look over on toward the left is 2020 with Trump up. He's nationally he was down 7 points, which right now nationally he's +3. He was +0.3. He was +0.5 yesterday. And then all of them, most of them, he's down 0, -8, -4. That's in 2020 where Biden eked out a victory. Now here's 2024, the Real Clear Politics average. It shows him up 0.5, 2.5, 2.4, 1%. The net difference, and you can see on the column on the very right, the actual difference between now and 2020, that's 7.9 points, 2.5 points, 2.8 on down to the worst number. There's 1.6 numbers in North Carolina, which Kamala Harris has pulled all of their campaign resources out of North Carolina, giving it up for loss to move them into Virginia. That's the news. You can see where all their campaigning is going. They've given up largely on North Carolina. Here's how he ends that memo. As the table clearly illustrates, President Trump's position nationally and in every single battleground state is significantly better today than it was 4 years ago. In fact, President Trump holds the lead in 5 of the 7 battleground states that account for over 270 electoral votes.
Dominant thing in the press today, for the political press, David Plouffe, extraordinary credibility with the national press. David does a briefing for friendly reporters who cover the Harris campaign. He makes the assertion that undecided voters in the last few days have moved towards Kamala Harris, that they've moved towards Kamala Harris because of the Madison Square Garden event. Now, that assertion seems questionable on the face. If I were on the call, I would have demanded some proof, not just an assertion. It's a hard thing for a campaign to know. They would have to know that voters are saying, I'm switching from undecided to Harris, and I'm doing it because of Madison Square Garden. I don't know how the Harris campaign would know that.
Now here we're back to the CNN spin, and David Axelrod is going to destroy this CNN analysis by the end. So I'm just saying, hold tight.
I have heard from Republicans that there is concern at the Trump campaign amongst the operatives that actually really do know the political wherewithal, that the turnout and enthusiasm numbers aren't where they need to be.
Can I just echo something Harry said?
Yeah.
Nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. This is a really, really close election. All of these states.
That's Axelrod blowing her away. She was, I really, really feel, I really, really hurt. First of all, I want Trump's team to be concerned and working hard all the way to the end, because we have to get a big enough victory to avoid what.
All due respect, I have a lot of respect for the CNN pollsters, but you aggregate these polls, and when you aggregate them, they're too close to call, and they're all going to be too close to call, and we're going to know in sometime next week, hopefully, what the answer is. But I think there's some imponderables here.
It's too close to call. It's an imponderable. Remember, that's Barack Obama's David Axelrod, who I kind of like how sober he is. He's not like James Carville, a complete lunatic cobra walking among us.
Is there a hidden vote among Republican women and white non-college women for her? Is there this? Are we going to see the same effect we've seen in the last elections, where Trump produces a vote that has eluded pollsters?
He's just saying it's too close to call, and I agree with that. America's tied. It's a toss-up. Now it's a matter of who has the best ground game to get those reluctant voters out. And I think the enthusiasm is going to help Trump about as much as it can, and it's going to be the significant factor in this election.
But then he said profile of the undecideds are better for Harris than for Donald Trump. It's helpful from experience to be closing a presidential campaign with late deciding voters breaking by double digits to you, and the remaining undecideds looking more friendly to you than to your opponent. He doesn't mention the Madison Square Garden thing, but he said that on the call. David's free to assert whatever he wants, but it is being written up like it's a fact. And I will tell you, the whole basis of the Trump campaign's confidence is the profile of the undecideds is 2-to-1 favorable to Trump. I've had detailed conversations with them about it for a long time, and I've seen how they're saying that. And for David Plouffe to assert this is the bandwagon effect, right? We're not the underdogs anymore in the Harris campaign. Again, David has credibility, but the press is covering it with total credulity. Plouffe is right. Plouffe is right that the undecideds moved because of Madison Square Garden. Again, I doubt it's true that they moved because of Madison Square Garden. I doubt, maybe. And I doubt they know that. So I asked Chris LaCivita, who's roughly David's counterpart at the Trump campaign, what he thought of David's two assertions, that Madison Square Garden has moved undecideds and that the remaining undecideds profile are better for Harris and Trump. Here's what Chris told me. What the hell is he going to say? Speaking of David Plouffe, he's losing. Fact of the matter is, David can't do anything but bullshit until Tuesday because we are kicking his ass. The only thing the Harris campaign has functional at this point is a bullshit machine that is dutifully repeated by the legacy media as if fact.
Keep you guys posted if I hear any better numbers, but we're going to rely less and less on polling in the last few days here because it's very hard to gauge polling. Now we're going to go to early vote numbers and coming back on actually counting the actual votes that are already in. I'm dug in exile.